Samuel L. Clemens, born in the small village of Florida, Missouri, grew up in the town of Hannibal, Missouri, and became a proficient typesetter. He also developed a lifelong wanderlust. In 1853, the 17-year-old, believing he could take care of himself away from home, journeyed to New York City via St. Louis with interludes in Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. By the spring of 1854, financial conditions had sent him back to the Mississippi River Valley. It wasn't until 1857, with thoughts of coca farming in the Amazon, that Sam would journey forth again on a path leading to his time as a Mississippi riverboat pilot. Sam's journey began when he boarded a packet steamer in Hannibal, bound for St. Louis. Packet steamers were vessels that transported both freight and passengers. Some were fast and unreliable, others larger, slower, and carried more freight. Some more luxurious than others, but carried less freight. St. Louis in the summer of 1853, a burgeoning city of 100,000, the largest city in the West. This wasn't enough for Sam, and he stayed only long enough to make fare to New York. He'd read about the New York World's Fair, the exhibition of the industry of all nations, with its Crystal Palace, directly inspired by London's of 1851. Of the journey to New York, Sam wrote to his mother, "It took a day by steamboat and cars to go from St. Louis to Bloomington, Illinois, another day by railroad from there to Chicago, where I laid over all day Sunday, from Chicago to Monroe in Michigan by railroad, another day from Monroe across Lake Erie in the fine Lake Palace, southern Michigan, to Buffalo, another day, from Buffalo to Albany by railroad, another day, and from Albany to New York by Hudson River steamboat, another day, an awful trip taking 5 days where it should have only taken 3. I shall wait a day or so for my insides to get settled after the jolting they received, when I shall look out for a sit, for they say there's plenty of work to be had for sober compositors." Today the journey would take between 2 or 3 hours to half a day by flight, or about 10 hours by Amtrak. August 19th, Sam boarded the side-wheeler steamer Cornelia and traveled to Alton, Illinois. The Cornelia sunk just 2 years later, running into a rock at Chain of Rocks. Chain of Rocks is a geological formation just below the confluence of the Missouri and the Mississippi River. Sam then took the train from Alton to Springfield. The Alton and Sangamon Railroad, chartered in February 27th of 1847 in Illinois, to connect Alton to Springfield in Sangamon County. The line was finished in 1852. The Chicago and Mississippi Railroad extended the line to Bloomington in 1854 and Joliet in 1855. Sam took Frink's stage to Bloomington. Frink's was first established in 1840 as Frink, Walker and Company. The company came to dominate all stagecoach travel in Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Indiana, and Missouri. They used Concord coaches for their routes. The name changed to John Frink and Company in 1849, and the business relationship between the two men was dissolved in 1856. Saturday, August 20th, 1853, Sam boarded the Illinois Central to LaSalle, Illinois, then on to Chicago. The Chicago and Rock Island Railroad took him to Joliet, and the St. Louis, Alton, and Chicago the rest of the way. He arrived in Chicago at 7 p.m. Sunday, August 21st, 1853, Sam departed Chicago on what would, in 1855, become the Michigan Southern and Northern Indiana Railroad. The Northern Indiana Road and the Michigan Southern Railroad. Reports are that he departed at 9 p.m. Also, it has been noted that he first went to Toledo and then to Monroe. I am dubious and suspect that he went through Adrian, directly east to Monroe. Monday, 22nd of August, 8 a.m., from Monroe across Lake Erie to Buffalo by the steamer Southern Michigan, a wooden side-wheel Great Lakes passenger and package freight vessel owned by the Michigan Southern Railroad Company, in service with sister vessel Northern Indiana between Buffalo, New York and Monroe, Michigan. The boat was laid up late in 1857 season at Monroe because of the Panic of 1857. By the time the economy recovered, the railroad lines around Lake Erie had been completed, and the large vessels of her type were no longer needed. Tuesday, 23rd of August, 7 a.m., Sam departed Buffalo and traveled to Albany via Rochester and Syracuse. On the New York Central, Erastus Corning had created the New York Central Railroad Company from 10 small railroad companies between Buffalo and Albany just 3 months previous to Sam's trip. 7 p.m. on the Hudson River to New York City aboard the low-pressure steamer Isaac Newton. Built in 1846, the steamboat was larger than any previous river steamer. The vessel consumed 4 tons of coal per hour, a startling amount for that time. The paddle wheels were 39 feet in diameter, and the ship was 338 feet long. The steamer was rebuilt in 1855, extending the length to 205 feet. It was unsurpassed in size and the splendor of its interior furnishings. As was often the case with steamers, the ship's starboard boiler exploded on December 5th, 1863, when opposite Fort Lee. The liner burnt to the water's edge, injuring 17 people and killing 9. Sam wrote his mother an apology for shocking her at his destination. He then described an exhibit of what would later become the Wild Men of Borneo, and a brief mention of the Crystal Palace and the Marble Palace. Sam found lodging in a mechanic's boarding house on Duane Street.